Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine, Content Specialist for the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship, which is part of the School of Politics, Security, and International Affairs at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. Welcome to our Middle School Civics Highlights series. Today we focus on benchmark CG3.15, analyze the advantages of capitalism and the free market in the United States over government-controlled economic systems, including socialism and communism, in regard to economic freedom and raising the standard of living for citizens. In Part 2, we focus on comparing economic prosperity and opportunity of current nations. We focus our attention on benchmark clarification 2. Students will compare the economic prosperity and opportunity of current nations. And we ask how economic prosperity is related to opportunity in current nations. So we focus our attention on these three countries, the United States, Canada, and Russia, focusing on ownership and control and competition. So looking at the United States, we see that United States, being a capitalistic country, focuses on the individual's control of the means of production, and it is the market, what people choose to buy or sell, what people want to have, what people don't want to have. It is the market that determines what goods will be sold at what price. And because there are many people involved in this means of production, because it's individuals who control the means of production, and it's also individuals who look at trends, and if there is a high desire for particular goods, then that is going to drive the price up for those goods, and consequently there's going to be a lot of competition. And because there's going to be a lot of competition, those higher prices are going to then be lower, but the quality is high, as different entrepreneurs and different vendors and different people who are looking to sell their goods and services are competing with other people who want to make sure that the people that they're selling to are going to buy their product versus buying someone else's product that's similar. So there's a lot of competition to be better, and the competition to be better also contributes to lower prices. That is the argument made by those who support capitalism, such as capitalism in the United States. In Canada, as a socialist country, when we're focusing on ownership and control, we note that the basic means of production is owned and managed by government. When it comes to private ownership, it does occur with business regulation. So the argument here is that the government plays more of a role in owning and managing the basic means of production, which means that there's going to be more similarity in terms of the different products. There's going to be more expectations of similarity across the same kind of product that's being bought and sold in the market. In a socialist system, cooperation is stressed over competition. When we focus on communism, such as that found in Russia, the government owns the means of production, which determines what goods will be sold at what price. And consequently, there's going to be no competition, both as to the quality of what's being sold and made, and there's also going to be no competition regarding the price. And so that's a very different approach than what we see in a capitalistic system. When it comes to competition, there's no competition, and as a result, there's lower quality goods because there's no incentive, there's no desire to be better than someone else if the goods are basically sold at the same price, because that's determined by the government. So we see a lot of interesting comparisons focusing on ownership and control and competition when we look at capitalism in the United States, socialism in Canada, and communism in Russia. Now we focus our attention on standard of living. In the United States, which practices capitalism, there is a high standard of living and economic security, while individuals are free to earn profits, but they also may risk losses within this free system. So one of the outcomes of freedom is that freedom may result in people either earning less money when they're selling goods and services in the marketplace, or they're actually losing money. It may be that they're trying to sell goods and services and products that the public doesn't want. It could be that the public had wanted these goods and services in the past and they no longer do. When we're focusing on socialism, such as in Canada, there is a high standard of living and economic security. However, high taxes provide free healthcare and education, which means that in the socialism system in Canada, there is a high emphasis on education, free healthcare, and a standard of living, but this also comes with high taxes. In Russia, focusing on a communist approach, the goal is equality for everybody, which is then enforced by the government. This means that some people might have different talents and skills or different motivation, and yet the goal is equality for everyone, even though everyone may not be equal in various ways, and this equality then is enforced by the government. Now we're going to be looking at some polling data, some survey data from Pew Research Center. And let's look at the question. More say capitalism gives all people an equal opportunity to be successful than say this about socialism. And so when we ask the question, how well do the following phrases describe giving all people equal opportunity, making sure everyone's basic needs are met, such as food, healthcare, and housing, or restricted people's individual freedoms, we see this comparison in the perception of socialism and capitalism in these three categories. So we see, for example, that people who focus on how well socialism accomplishes giving opportunity to be successful, making sure that everyone has equal opportunity, that the percentage of people who say that about socialism, saying not at all, is almost 1/4. That almost 1/4 of people believe that socialism does not give all people an equal opportunity to be successful, whereas that same question we'll see in responses 14%. When we're focusing on meeting basic needs such as food, healthcare, and housing, right? 23% believe that capitalism is not at all making sure that everyone's basic needs are met. So we see that there are larger percentages among those who say that socialism does an extremely good job or a very good job of making sure of these things. In fact, 37% if we add together the 15% that say extremely and 22% that say very. So there are these perceptions of capitalism that capitalism does provide for everyone, and there is not as much of a perception that capitalism provides for everyone. Focusing on restricting individual freedoms, there is this perception that socialism is far more restrictive, does a very good job of restricting individual freedoms, and capitalism is far less likely to focus on restricting individual freedoms according to the public's perception from this data that was collected in 2022. So look at the extremelies for this last item for restricting people's individual freedoms, that 22% say that socialism is extremely effective at restricting individual freedom, but that 7% say the same about capitalism. So this is a really very interesting graphic, worth our focus and attention to look at how the data are different across the different categories and between the two different types of economic systems. Thank you for joining me for Middle School Civics Highlights. If you still have questions, please contact us using the information that appears on the screen. Till next time, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine. Thank you for joining me.